Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep into My Hero Academia and
Police! Help! Police! Help!
honestly, it's all thanks to you lot, our balls deep community. Whenever our prediction comes true, it just overfills us with more power. But honestly, we mentioned the body takeover and prison break theory a while back, which was on how AFO 1 could take over Shigaraki's body and break his main body out of prison. And this chapter 297 materialized everything we predicted. If you guys want to watch a detailed explanation on how we predicted this and why it was made using all of Horikoshi's foreshadowing, then check out our video, The Ending of My Hero Academia Explained. I also pinned it down for you guys on the comment section below. But to summarize our point, AFO 1's original body could not achieve his dreams and ideals. Hence, the need for a takeover and control over a body which can carry out his will perfectly. In chapter 94, when AFO 1 first goes to prison, in his dialogue he rants how All Might messed up because Shigaraki losing him as a mentor will allow him to be more independent and stronger. AFO 1 predicted exactly what Shigaraki would feel and do in return. This level of manipulation highlights that AFO 1 is playing everything like a chess game. In chapter 88, we also learned that AFO 1's concern about his original body deteriorating and being reduced to a broken state after his constant bouts with the One for All users and later All Might left him unable to stock up as much quirks. AFO 1 understood that the next stage to his plans was for him to be new again. With the help of Dr. Saab and his host Shigaraki, AFO 1 plans would once again resurface. Even his predicament of being locked in the most secure prison Tartarus was always in AFO 1's control. We knew this from chapter 116 during AFO 1's conversation with All Might when he indicated that he will eventually escape. From the beginning, all of these foreshadowings were present, and using a balls deep prediction quirk, we were able to hit the ball with the way things ended up. But most importantly, as I said, it was all of you guys, the balls deep community, that helped us out by continuing to support us throughout these years. We really appreciate every one of you and promise to start holding more interactive sessions on our Twitch stream and Discord. We have so much planned for this year, from new amazing merch to awesome content, so please stick around and smash that like button showing us your support. Okay, so the chapter starts with the cover page bird's eye view of the Tartarus prison. It's basically a big block of Wikipedia text about the prison. Tartarus is where all the criminals with quirks are sent to, even if they are just awaiting a sentence. There are 6 levels, with each level being dangerous the further down you go. It is the darkest corner of society with no escape. And this is kind of cool that we are getting exposition on this island, as it's an interesting place in the My Hero Academia world. Although I would have liked a hero or some kind of action to relay this information, like maybe a scene of Mr. Compress or Spinner worried about Shigaraki or AFO 1, where we get the information about this prison sprinkled in there. Anyways, the time is 8:34 PM. We see the mainland side entrance, which is also known as the Bronze Gate. A guard called Gygus, who's looking like a bloody horned demon, calls the watchtower in distress to tell them that there is a code red security situation and that his brother Briareus or Beerus or whatever his name is dead. However, as Gygus is sending this message, AFO 1, who's taken over Shigaraki's body, is shown from the shadows decaying the guard. We then move on to the lowest level of Tartarus, where 2 guards are chatting away about a new inmate being brought in. They start talking about how they are just bringing a whole skyscraper tomorrow morning, where they are referring to none other than Gran Torino, who in their own words is the pickled plum-faced subordinate. They're doing my guy AFO 1 dirty. It's not his fault he's looking like an ugly ass, crusty ass toe.
No.
Anyways, the guards also throw the idea about why don't they just kill Gran Torino, where the other guard then injects, saying that he's too big to kill with firearms, and since he's a human, the use of missiles is deemed unethical. Now let me get this straight. This giant ass monster is still considered a human after destroying literal cities as he was running towards Shigaraki only 2 chapters ago. Is it really unethical to kill this Godzilla man? And if you guys think about it, this guy is like a literal nuke. Now moving on, one of the guards is actually sensible and starts talking about how he's like a disaster's waiting to happen. This dude isn't human, and the same goes for everyone rotting in this prison. Now, this is something Horikoshi is highlighting on purpose. We know from Shigaraki's original story and even Darby's that the reason they became villains is because society is outcasting them, with similar sentiments as these gods. Just like how gods don't see Gigantomachia as a human and are afraid of him, that old lady in chapter 237 also didn't see Shigaraki as a human and was so afraid that she didn't help that lonely child. Instead, Instead, she pushed him to just call the police, which obviously at that point he wouldn't have done. Now, coming back, the guards have stopped talking about this as they are afraid of being cancelled. Something interesting they mention here is how there was a heart and mind party, which was likely fighting for an ethical way to deal with the villains with crazy quirks. However, due to the recent events, they are likely going to be dissolved due to public sentiments leaning towards the fear and distrust for the outcast of society due to the destruction caused by Shigaraki and the PLA. Now, it's quite ironic how Shigaraki's and All For One's actions to liberate the villains is actually causing more pain for the ones in the prison or out in the world due to people's fears about them further being substantiated. For example, the next page shows us the misery these prisoners are facing with the isolation and being stripped of their human rights. We also get a glimpse of the public sentiments as they just see these dangerous criminals as beasts in the human clothing rather than humans themselves. They are beyond saving. Now, this actually does go back to our real world, and we all know what Horikoshi is doing here. There's a clear moral dilemma being played. For instance, coming back to our own world, the question of prison sentences and even death penalty, if it should be carried out, or if a life sentence in prison is actually a beneficial outcome for either the prisoner or society. These prison guards are just a medium for Horikoshi to let out these polarizing opinions. Moving on, the red alert is active and everything is in lockdown mode. It seems there is someone at the main entrance, however when they get there is no one visible at sight. Not too long after, Tartarus's high-tech fighter planes detect multiple intruders under the bridge, but before they can respond, they get destroyed instantly by All For One's high-end Nomus. As explosions go around the prison, we see a flying Nomu breaching its perimeter. With Shigaraki on the back of it, we get a close-up view. It seems that Shigaraki has started to regain his consciousness as he barely manages to croak. "I told you, this was my body, master!" As he struggles to maintain control, All For One, who's still in control, responds asking if Shigaraki has awoken and should continue to rest since his regeneration ability has slowed down and that he should save his energy to heal. Shiggy snarkily replies, if he needs rest, then why is his body out in some prison? So All For One goes, "Ah, shit." You're right. I meant rest after this whole prison break is done. But Shigaraki was like, hell no, give me my body back. All For One then asks Shigaraki, wasn't it him that wanted the power of All For One? All For One continues to explain that it was Shigaraki who rejected society, who refused to help him, and then sought out power to get revenge on the world, that everything that is occurring right now is the fruits of his labor, thanks to Shigaraki's tenacity. But now Shigaraki knows that he's being manipulated and buttered up. He tells All For One that he doesn't just want to be used as some lowly pawn chess piece. All For One then corrects him, stating that he isn't just a mere pawn, he is in fact the most important piece of them all. The panel then displays Shigaraki between the palms of All For One, stating that he will become All For One's future king. Now guys, I know I said this probably a million times already, but we actually covered this in great detail in the ending of My Hero Academia Explained video, where he mentions All For One's characteristics on how his disciple was never his disciple but a servant for him to reincarnate in so he could forever live in the world that he planned to make. Now moving on to the next panel, outside of the upper levels of Tartarus, more chaos ensued as the facilities and surveillance got destroyed by All For One, Shigaraki and the Nomus. Thanks to his search quirk, All For One was able to pinpoint the location of his original body, but due to it being around 500 meters deep, the water pressure would make getting his body through the building impossible, especially given the state of Shigaraki's imperfected body, as it doesn't seem it will be able to hold up for much longer. But then All For One says he also planned to escape with some of the other villains. We also mentioned this in our previous video, how this prison break will affect the disparity between the heroes and villains, which also reinforces the idea of a resistance arc, which we can expect to happen later on. Now coming back to the chapter, the profiling measures in place at the prison excited All For One, as it's truly lived up to his namesake Tartarus, the Greek mythology version of hell or the underworld. All For One commends the precaution that the facilities has taken, as he states even if he had Marcus' help and a perfected body, breaking in would still be challenging. But meanwhile, in the prison control center, one of the officers begins to panic as the entire surveillance system has been hit with an EMP attack, causing them to be blind for 30 seconds until the system can reboot. That's when they realize with the system down, they won't be able to monitor what's going inside of the prison. This is when we get a panel of a locked up door with some kind of incredible electricity or energy leaking through it, as if it's ready to escape at any point. We then move to an incredibly short flashback of All For One and All Might talking about when All Might visited him in Tartarus back in chapter 116, saying how Tartarus is inspired by a deity from the Greek mythology representing hell itself, and even he would struggle against his deity. While thinking over this moment, he states how All Might is correct, how he himself would never be able to break out of Tartarus, which is exactly why it led to All For One to the conclusion that the only way to break out of Tartarus is if only he from the outside and himself from the inside, along with the other prisoners, can work in harmony together at a shared level of consciousness. This is the only way that they can defeat Tartarus. As All For One states this, the other prison doors opens up with electricity flowing through them. We see a scene of a hallway all messed up, indicating the prisoners has escaped. The situation in the security room looks dire as the staff sitting at the panels are in panic. The sisters won't come back on! The prisoners in solitary confinement are breaking out! As they scream in shock, we then see a large group of the security guards storm a hallway like the FBI's, which kind of they are, and they are ready to pull the trigger if any of these prisoners take even as much of a step outside of the cells. However, suddenly the wall in the security room gets breached and they don't even wait for the smoke to clear before firing their weapons. Sadly, they weren't using Quirk destroying bullets, as the firearms are proving to not be so effective. I mean, come on, this is a prison for some of the nation's greatest supervillains. Some of them could be wielding insane powers and all they have are normal firearms? Like, really? At this point, I bet some kind of sleeping gas would be more effective than whatever the hell they're doing. Also, can we talk about how unorganized Tartarus is for this prison break? You could argue it's because they don't have to deal with the prison breaks in the first place that leads to this, but again, this prison is holding villains that are national level threats who have influences over villains outside of the fences and no backup system, no weapons, nothing stopping these villains at all. Like, come on, are they just going to let them walk out? Even if in the later chapters the villains do meet up with some obstacle, it still doesn't seem like an excuse for this poor preparation and lack of order in this situation. Now, I don't really want to compare these mangas as they're completely different, but I was hoping more of a situation like Impel Down from One Piece. The way they executed the prison itself and the prison guards, the levels of floors, it was like a whole universe within a universe. I understand Horikoshi is trying to speed things up and show that All For One is smart, intelligent, he prepared for this for such a long time. But even All For One is saying that this is supposed to be the most difficult prison to break into. In fact, it's impossible. Yet he does this all in one chapter. Anyways, without giving too much flack, we then get a reintroduction to Muscular. If you don't remember who he is, he's the one that Deku fought against to protect Kota, which was all the way back in chapter 75 and 76. The scene is then switched as we get to see another batch of villains taking care of several guards without issue. Like, damn, are these guards from Walmart or something? What's going on here? Now, if I'm right, without the mask, I believe this fold-headed villain with some blade tooth coming out of his mouth is Moonfish. If you guys don't remember him, he's from chapter 73 and was defeated after the forest training camp. We then move to a female prisoner who I don't think I've seen before, but I can't lie, she's looking kind of, you know, kind of fleek. But she goes around and sees the locked prison door, which she decides to open up. And as soon as the prisoner being freed sees the light, he sprints without thanking her and just says, "Father." Who is this guy? I don't think we've seen him before either. And again, if I'm wrong, correct me in the comment section down below. Maybe this guy is All For One's son. Oh, I don't know. But anyways, I'm pretty sure there is some importance to this character along with this new female villain. Now the prison Tartarus can be seen from afar in the turmoil and chaos as we hear the screams of the prisoners in disbelief of their chance of freedom. All For One's voice echoes, "If you want to leave this place, then follow me, friends, and witness me from the sidelines." We then see Muscular pleasantly surprised as he says, "Shigaraki?" This chapter then ends, showing us that All For One's original body has finally escaped as he looks upon Shigaraki, his new body, and says, "This marks the beginning of the transition into a new era and the birth of a more perfect demon lord," and states, "This is the story of how I will become the greatest demon lord." And with that, the chapter finally ends. Now, this was actually a perfect way to knit All For One back to Shigaraki's character. Throughout the war, there seemed to be an illusion that Shigaraki was supposed to be the demon lord, the king, the poster head for the villains. However, All For One, being the character he is, he was never supposed to pass down the mantle to someone else. It was always supposed to be him. I mentioned earlier about my theory on how Shigaraki will have some sort of redemption, if not redemption, but at least a conclusion, where he will seek some sort of forgiveness from his grandmama. In the realm of the vestiges which All For One and One For All are connected to. And all of this goes full circle to the flashback we saw with All For One and his little brother, the first user of One For All, where All For One told his little brother how their lives will reflect the comic book they used to read as kids. All For One claims that he will make it into reality and not a fantasy. He wants to become the Demon King. And of course the first One For All user also says, bruh, you didn't finish reading the manga. There was more volumes that showcases the heroes win in the end, where they destroyed the Demon King. Now I don't know if the author of this comic they read as a kid, probably a Quirk user who can predict the future, you know, maybe he had some balls deep prediction quirk or something, who knows, but this is definitely a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now given the nature of this series, we already know the heroes are going to win, however they will still experience great losses along the way. In the end of the day, the only fruitful outcome would be for the heroes to understand the villains a bit more so they can prevent others becoming them in the future. The next stage for My Hero Academia will possibly be the resistance arc and a time skip when the heroes come back to fight All For One more time. However, post time skip Deku, Bakugo, Shoto, you know, all of these OGs will be on another level. Deku will probably even master all of his quirks. And let's not forget Eri, who's so OP. Without All For One freeing all the prisoners from Tartarus, things would probably end up being boring and one-sided in the future. And a quick thing I just want to point out is that Hero Killer Stain and probably even Overhaul will actually fight against All For One rather than being on the same side as him. There are many reasons for this, but I'll cover that later on. But with that guys, that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. And remember to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, ding that notification bell, and check out our merch store. With that, I'll catch you guys all next time.